Chapter 8: Facing the Critics and Sustaining the Movement. As the Atlantean wisdom movement continued its global expansion, it inevitably attracted a fair share of critics. While the majority of people were receptive to the teachings and the positive impact they were having, there were those who remained skeptical or even opposed to the idea. One of the main criticisms came from a group of traditional academics. They argued that the existence of Atlantis was purely a myth, a product of ancient fables and modern-day wishful thinking. They dismissed the idea that a lost civilization could have had such advanced knowledge and a profound philosophy. They claimed that Elara's interpretations of the so-called Atlantean texts were baseless and that she was fabricating a narrative to gain fame and fortune. Elara and her team took these criticisms seriously. They knew that they needed to address the academic concerns to give the movement more credibility. Dr. Amelia Thompson, the archaeologist on the team, redoubled her efforts to find tangible evidence of Atlantis. She led more expeditions to the area where Elara had discovered the entrance to the underwater city. This time, she brought along more advanced equipment, including high-resolution sonar and underwater drones. During one of these expeditions, they discovered some unusual underwater formations. The shapes and patterns of these structures were unlike anything that could be explained by natural geological processes. Dr. Thompson was excited. She believed that these could be the remains of Atlantean architecture. She immediately began a detailed study of the formations, taking samples, and analyzing the surrounding sediment. Back at the research lab, Dr. Thompson and her team worked tirelessly to date the samples and understand the nature of the structures. Their preliminary findings suggested that the formations could indeed be of ancient origin, and the way they were constructed showed signs of a sophisticated engineering technique. While this was not conclusive proof of Atlantis, it was a significant step forward in countering the academic skepticism. Elara also engaged in academic debates and discussions. She participated in online forums and academic conferences, presenting the evidence they had gathered so far. She explained the historical references to Atlantis from various ancient cultures and how the Atlantean philosophy was consistent with the understanding of the world in different historical periods. She emphasized that the movement was not just about proving the existence of Atlantis but about sharing the wisdom that could benefit humanity. Another group of critics was made up of some religious fundamentalists. They saw the Atlantean wisdom as a threat to their religious beliefs. They claimed that the concept of interconnectedness and the emphasis on personal spiritual exploration outside the framework of their established religious dogma was heresy. They launched campaigns against the movement, spreading misinformation, and trying to discredit Elara and her team. Elara and her team responded to these criticisms with patience and respect. They organized inter-faith dialogues, inviting religious leaders from different traditions to the Atlantean Wisdom Center. During these dialogues, they explained that the Atlantean wisdom was not meant to replace any religion but to complement it. They showed how the principles of harmony, respect, and self-awareness were common to many spiritual paths. One such inter-faith dialogue was attended by a Catholic priest, a Muslim imam, and a Hindu Swami. Elara and her team shared the Atlantean concept of the universal energy that connected all things. The religious leaders were initially cautious, but as the discussion progressed, they began to see the similarities between this concept and their own religious teachings about the divine presence in all creation. The priest said, "The idea of a universal energy that binds us all is not so different from our understanding of God's omnipresence. While the language may be different, the essence is the same." The Imam added, "In Islam, we believe in the unity of all creation." The Atlantean wisdom seems to echo this belief, and I think there is much we can learn from each other. These inter-faith dialogues help to dispel some of the misunderstandings and build bridges between the Atlantean movement and different religious communities. In addition to dealing with external critics, Elara also had to focus on sustaining the movement internally. As the movement grew, there was a need to ensure that the quality of the programs and the authenticity of the teachings were maintained. She established a rigorous training program for all new instructors and volunteers. The training program included in-depth study of the Atlantean texts, practical training in meditation techniques, and workshops on cultural sensitivity. Instructors were required to demonstrate a deep understanding of the Atlantean philosophy and its application in different contexts. They also had to undergo regular evaluations to ensure that they were teaching the material accurately. Elara also worked on developing a long-term financial plan for the movement. The initial funding from donations and sponsorships had been crucial in getting the movement off the ground, but they needed a more stable source of income to continue their global expansion and maintain the Atlantean Wisdom Center. She explored different options, such as creating a membership-based model. Members would pay a monthly or annual fee in exchange for exclusive access to advanced courses, personalized coaching, and behind-the-scenes content. She also considered partnering with businesses that shared the values of the Atlantean movement. These partnerships could include SEO, branding opportunities, product endorsements, or joint projects. As the movement faced these challenges, the global community of followers remained a source of strength. They rallied behind Elara and her team, providing support in various forms. Some followers volunteered their time to help with administrative tasks at the center, while others used their social media platforms to promote the movement and counter the negative propaganda spread by the critics. One of the followers, a social media influencer named Jake, started a campaign called Share the Atlantean Light. He encouraged his followers to share their personal stories of how the Atlantean wisdom had changed their lives. The campaign went viral, with thousands of people sharing their experiences on different social media platforms. These stories not only inspired others but also showed the real-life impact of the movement, which helped to counter the skepticism. The mobile app also continued to be a major success. The developers regularly updated the app with new content, such as new guided meditations, in-depth articles on Atlantean history, and interactive quizzes to test users' knowledge of the philosophy. The app's user base continued to grow, and it received positive reviews from users around the world. As the movement entered a new phase of growth, Elara reflected on the journey so far. The challenges they had faced, both from external critics and internal management issues, had been significant. But they had also been opportunities for the movement to evolve and become more resilient. She knew that the movement still had a long way to go. There were more critics to address, more communities to reach, and more ways to integrate the Atlantean wisdom into mainstream society. But she was determined. With the support of her team, the global community of followers, and the timeless wisdom of Atlantis as her guide, she was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Elara also started to plan for the future expansion of the Atlantean Wisdom Center. She envisioned a network of centers around the world, each tailored to the local culture and needs. These centers would not only be places for learning and meditation but also hubs for research, community development, and cross-cultural exchange. She began to scout for potential locations for these new centers. She looked at different countries, considering factors such as the local interest in the Atlantean wisdom, the availability of resources, and the cultural compatibility. She also reached out to local partners in these areas, discussing the possibility of collaborating to establish the centers. As she traveled to different places, Elara met with local activists, spiritual leaders, and community organizers. She shared the vision of the Atlantean movement and listened to their ideas and suggestions. In one country, a group of environmental activists was particularly interested in partnering with the movement. They saw the Atlantean wisdom as a powerful tool for promoting environmental conservation and sustainable living. Elara and the activists discussed the possibility of creating a center that would focus on the intersection of Atlantean philosophy and environmentalism. The center would offer workshops on sustainable agriculture, renewable energy, and eco-friendly living, all based on the Atlantean concept of living in harmony with nature. Back at the original Atlantean Wisdom Center, the team continued to work on new projects. They were developing a curriculum for a comprehensive online university, level course on Atlantean studies. The course would cover various aspects of Atlantean civilization, including its history, philosophy, technology, and art. They hoped that this course would attract students from around the world, further spreading the knowledge of Atlantis and its wisdom. As the movement grew and adapted, Elara knew that the key to its success was to stay true to the core principles of the Atlantean wisdom. The challenges were many, but the potential for positive change was also enormous. And as she looked towards the future, she was filled with hope and excitement, ready to lead the movement into new frontiers and make the wisdom of Atlantis a guiding light for humanity. Chapter 9: The Tapestry of Global Impact. The Atlantean Wisdom Movement, having weathered the storms of criticism and internal challenges, was now firmly on a path of global impact. Elara and her team's efforts were beginning to bear fruit in ways that far exceeded their initial expectations, as the tendrils of Atlantean teachings spread into diverse aspects of society around the world. The educational revolution. One of the most significant areas of impact was in education. The Atlantean-inspired school programs that Elara's team had developed were being adopted by an increasing number of educational institutions globally. In North America, a large-scale school district had integrated the Atlantean concept of interconnectedness into its environmental science curriculum. Students were no longer just learning about ecosystems in a theoretical sense, but were encouraged to understand their own role within these systems. Teachers reported a remarkable shift in the students' attitudes. In a classroom in California, students started a green footprint project. Inspired by the Atlantean respect for nature, they measured the environmental impact of their school activities, from energy consumption to waste generation. They then proposed and implemented solutions to reduce their footprint, such as installing solar panels and starting a composting program. In Europe, the Atlantean-based meditation techniques were introduced into the physical education curriculum in several schools. Instead of traditional relaxation exercises, students were guided through Atlantean-style meditations that focused on body-mind connection. This not only helped students manage stress but also improved their focus during academic sessions. A teacher in France noted, "Since we started these meditations, the students are more present in class. They are better able to handle the pressure of exams, and there has been a significant decrease in disciplinary issues." In Asia, schools were incorporating Atlantean storytelling into their language and moral education classes. These stories, which blended Atlantean values with local cultural elements, were used to teach children about empathy, respect, and the importance of community. In a primary school in India, students were deeply engaged in stories about Atlantean heroes who overcame challenges through their wisdom and connection to the universal energy. The children were then encouraged to create their own stories, applying these values in modern-day contexts. Corporate transformation. The corporate world was also experiencing a transformation under the influence of Atlantean wisdom. Multinational companies were showing increasing interest in the workplace programs developed by Elara's team. In the technology sector, a major software company in Silicon Valley had implemented an Atlantean-inspired mindful innovation initiative. Employees were given regular breaks for meditation sessions, and team-building activities were designed around the concept of interconnectedness. The company found that these practices led to a more collaborative work environment. Instead of individual-centric competition, teams started to work together more effectively, sharing ideas and supporting each other's growth. As a result, the company saw a significant increase in the number of innovative products being developed. In the business world of Southeast Asia, a large manufacturing firm was facing issues with employee burnout and high turnover rates. After implementing the Atlantean-based stress management and work-life balance programs, the situation improved dramatically. Employees were taught to view their work as a part of a larger, interconnected whole, rather than just a means to an end. This shift in perspective led to increased job satisfaction, and the company's retention rate improved significantly. Community-driven change. At the community level, the Atlantean wisdom was fostering a new sense of unity and purpose. In a small town in Africa, a community center inspired by Atlantean principles was established. This center served as a gathering place for the locals, where they could participate in meditation sessions, learn about sustainable farming techniques based on Atlantean knowledge of nature, and engage in community-building activities. The community members, who had previously faced issues of division and lack of cooperation, were now coming together. They started a community garden, where they grew a variety of crops using organic and sustainable methods. The produce was shared among the community, and the surplus was sold in the local market, with the profits being used to further develop the community center. In Australia, a coastal community was facing the threat of rising sea levels. Inspired by the Atlantean wisdom's emphasis on harmony with nature, they launched a Resilient Coast project. Community members, along with environmental experts, used Atlantean-inspired design principles to develop strategies for coastal protection. They planted native vegetation to stabilize the shoreline, built small-scale wave breakers using natural materials, and educated the community about the importance of sustainable coastal living. Cultural and artistic expressions. The Atlantean wisdom was also inspiring a renaissance in cultural and artistic expressions. Artists around the world were incorporating Atlantean symbols and themes into their work. In the world of visual arts, a renowned painter in South America was creating a series of paintings inspired by the Atlantean vision of the universe. His paintings, with their vivid colors and intricate details, depicted the interconnectedness of all life forms, from the tiniest microorganisms to the vast galaxies. In the music industry, a composer in Europe was working on an album titled Echoes of Atlantis. The music combined traditional instruments with modern electronic sounds to create a sonic landscape that captured the essence of Atlantean tranquility and wisdom. The album was well received, with many listeners reporting that the music helped them relax and connect with a deeper sense of self. In the literary world, authors were writing novels and non-fiction books exploring the Atlantean philosophy. These books were not only popular among the existing followers of the Atlantean movement but were also attracting a wider audience who were curious about the ancient wisdom and its modern-day applications. Challenges amidst success. However, with this widespread impact came new challenges. As the Atlantean wisdom was being integrated into different fields and cultures, there was a risk of oversimplification or misapplication. Elara and her International Council of Advisors had to be vigilant. They regularly reviewed new initiatives and projects to ensure that the core teachings were not being diluted. For example, in a new wellness program that claimed to be based on Atlantean principles, the Council noticed that the concept of interconnectedness was being reduced to a mere marketing slogan. The program focused more on individual physical fitness rather than the holistic well-being that the Atlantean wisdom promoted. The Council reached out to the program organizers, providing guidance on how to realign the program with the true essence of Atlantean teachings. Another challenge was the need for continuous research and development. As the movement grew, there was a demand for more in-depth studies on the effectiveness of Atlantean practices. Elara collaborated with universities and research institutions around the world to conduct scientific research on the impact of Atlantean meditation techniques on mental health, the long-term effects of incorporating Atlantean values in education, and the ecological benefits of applying Atlantean principles in sustainable development. The road ahead. Despite these challenges, the future of the Atlantean wisdom movement looked promising. Elara and her team were constantly exploring new ways to spread the wisdom further. They were planning to launch a global summit on Atlantean wisdom, bringing together leaders from different sectors: education, business, environment, and culture, to discuss the future of the movement and its role in addressing global challenges. Elara also envisioned a more inclusive movement, reaching out to marginalized communities and underprivileged regions. She believed that the Atlantean wisdom had the potential to empower these communities, providing them with tools for self-development, community building, and environmental stewardship. As the movement continued to grow and evolve, Elara looked back on the journey with a deep sense of fulfillment. What had started as a personal discovery in the Forgotten Library of Atlantis had blossomed into a global movement, touching the lives of millions. And as she looked towards the future, she was filled with a renewed sense of purpose, ready to continue spreading the Atlantean wisdom and witnessing its transformative power on an even larger scale. The Atlantean wisdom had become a thread that was weaving through the fabric of global society, creating a more harmonious, sustainable, and enlightened world. And Elara was determined to ensure that this thread remained strong, guiding humanity towards a future where the principles of Atlantis were not just a concept but a way of life. Chapter 10: The Global Summit and the Next Leap. The much-anticipated Global Summit on Atlantean Wisdom was finally upon them. The event was held in a large, modern convention center located in a city known for its cultural diversity and forward-thinking spirit. Delegates from all corners of the world had gathered, representing a vast array of fields including education, business, environmental conservation, spirituality, and the arts. The air was charged with excitement and a shared sense of purpose as they prepared to delve deeper into the Atlantean wisdom and discuss its future in the global context. The summit begins. Elara, as the driving force behind the movement, opened the summit with a heartfelt speech. "We are here today," she began, her voice echoing through the grand hall, "because we believe in the power of the Atlantean wisdom to transform our world. This wisdom, once hidden in the depths of the ocean in the Forgotten Library of Atlantis, has now emerged as a guiding light for humanity. It has the potential to heal our planet, unite our communities, and elevate our individual and collective consciousness." The first session of the summit focused on the impact of Atlantean wisdom in education. A panel of educators from different countries took the stage. A teacher from a rural school in South America shared how the Atlantean-inspired curriculum had transformed the learning environment. "Our students, who once saw education as a chore, now approach it with enthusiasm. The stories and teachings from Atlantis have made them more curious, more empathetic, and more connected to the world around them." An educational researcher from a prestigious university in Asia presented the results of a study on the long-term effects of integrating Atlantean meditation techniques into the school day. "We found that students who regularly practiced these meditations showed significant improvements in cognitive function, emotional regulation, and social skills. It's not just about academic performance, it's about developing well-rounded individuals." Business and sustainability. The next session was dedicated to the role of Atlantean wisdom in the corporate world and sustainable business practices. A CEO of a multinational company recounted his experience of implementing Atlantean-based principles in his organization. We used to focus solely on profit making, but after embracing the Atlantean concept of interconnectedness, we realized that our success is intertwined with the well-being of our employees, the environment, and the communities we operate in. We've since shifted our business model to be more sustainable, and the results have been astonishing. Our employees are happier, our brand reputation has improved, and we're seeing long-term growth. An environmental economist joined the panel to discuss how Atlantean wisdom could be used to re-evaluate economic systems. The Atlantean view of nature as a source of wisdom and sustenance, not just a resource to be exploited, can guide us towards a more sustainable economic future. We need to incorporate the true value of nature into our economic models, and the Atlantean wisdom provides a framework for doing so. Community and social justice. The afternoon sessions centered on the impact of Atlantean wisdom on community building and social justice. A community organizer from an inner-city neighborhood in North America shared how the Atlantean teachings had helped bring together a fragmented community. We started community meditation circles, and through these, people from different backgrounds began to understand and respect each other. The concept of interconnectedness made them realize that their individual well-being was linked to the well-being of the whole community. We've since been able to launch several community development projects, from building a community garden to starting a youth mentorship program. A social justice advocate from Africa spoke about how Atlantean wisdom could be used to address issues of inequality. The Atlantean emphasis on equality and respect for all can be a powerful tool in the fight against discrimination. By teaching these values at the community level, we can break down the barriers that divide us and create a more just society. Cultural and spiritual exchange. The cultural and spiritual exchange session was a vibrant showcase of how Atlantean wisdom was being integrated into different cultural and spiritual traditions. A spiritual leader from the Middle East talked about how the Atlantean concept of the universal energy resonated with his own faith. Our religious teachings also speak of a higher power that connects all of us. The Atlantean wisdom has given us new ways to understand and experience this connection, and it has enriched our spiritual practices. An artist from Europe presented her latest work, which was inspired by Atlantean symbols. These symbols are not just ancient relics, they carry a profound message. Through my art, I hope to make this message accessible to a wider audience and inspire others to explore the Atlantean wisdom. Challenges and solutions. However, the summit also served as a platform to discuss the challenges facing the movement. One of the major concerns was the standardization of Atlantean teachings. As the wisdom spread, different interpretations were emerging, and there was a need to ensure that the core principles remained intact. Elara proposed the creation of a global repository of official Atlantean teachings, a digital library that would serve as a reference point for all those involved in the movement. Another challenge was the lack of awareness in some parts of the world. Despite the global reach of the movement, there were still regions where the Atlantean wisdom was virtually unknown. The delegates discussed the need for more targeted outreach programs, tailored to the specific cultural, social, and economic contexts of these regions. The issue of funding was also raised. The movement had relied mainly on donations and sporadic sponsorships, but to continue its growth and impact, a more sustainable funding model was required. Some delegates suggested exploring partnerships with international development agencies, while others proposed the creation of an endowment fund. The next leap. As the summit drew to a close, Elara addressed the delegates once again. Today, we have shared our experiences, our challenges, and our hopes. The Global Summit on Atlantean Wisdom is not an end but a new beginning. We have identified the areas where we need to grow, the challenges we must overcome, and the opportunities that lie ahead. The delegates left the summit with a renewed sense of purpose. They returned to their respective countries and communities, armed with new ideas, strategies, and a stronger network of like-minded individuals. Elara and her team immediately began to implement the decisions made at the summit. The Global Repository of Atlantean Teachings was launched within months. It was a comprehensive digital platform that included translations of the original texts, research papers, case studies, and educational resources. This platform was accessible to anyone with an internet connection, ensuring that the authentic Atlantean wisdom was available to a global audience. The outreach programs were designed and rolled out. In regions with limited access to technology, teams of volunteers traveled to remote areas, conducting workshops, and sharing the Atlantean wisdom through storytelling, music, and art. In more developed regions, targeted marketing campaigns were launched to raise awareness among specific demographics. The search for sustainable funding sources intensified. Elara and her team met with representatives from international development agencies, pitched their ideas, and started the process of establishing partnerships. The endowment fund was also set up, with initial contributions from the more established members of the movement and some sympathetic philanthropists. As time passed, the impact of the summit became evident. The Atlantean wisdom movement grew stronger, more unified, and more impactful. New projects were launched, and existing ones expanded. In education, more schools and universities around the world were adopting Atlantean-inspired curricula. In the corporate world, more companies were integrating Atlantean principles into their business models. In communities, The sense of unity and purpose inspired by Atlantean wisdom was leading to more effective community development initiatives. Elara watched with pride as the movement she had founded continued to grow and evolve. The Atlantean wisdom was no longer a niche concept but a powerful force for positive change in the world. And as she looked towards the future, she knew that there were still many challenges to face, but she was confident that with the support of the global community and the timeless wisdom of Atlantis, they could continue to make a difference, guiding humanity towards a more harmonious, sustainable, and enlightened future. The journey of the Atlantean wisdom movement was far from over. It was just entering a new, more impactful phase, and Elara was ready to lead the way. Chapter 11: Navigating New Frontiers and Overcoming Hurdles. The momentum from the Global Summit on Atlantean Wisdom propelled the movement forward into uncharted territories. Elara and her team found themselves at the helm of a growing global phenomenon, but with growth came a fresh set of complex challenges that demanded innovative solutions. Technological integration and digital divide. One of the most pressing issues was the integration of technology in spreading the Atlantean wisdom. While the mobile app had been a significant success, there was a need to explore other digital platforms and emerging technologies. The team started to experiment with virtual reality, VR, and augmented reality, AR, experiences. They aimed to create immersive environments where users could virtually visit the lost city of Atlantis, explore its libraries, and interact with the Atlantean wisdom in a more engaging way. However, this technological push also highlighted the digital divide. In many parts of the world, especially in rural and underprivileged areas, access to high-speed internet and advanced devices was limited. To bridge this gap, the movement collaborated with local governments and non-profit organizations. They set up community-based technology centers in these areas, equipped with computers, tablets, and VR headsets. Volunteers were trained to teach the locals how to use these technologies and access the Atlantean wisdom resources. In a small village in Southeast Asia, a technology center was established. At first, the villagers were skeptical. But as they started to experience the VR-based Atlantean meditation sessions and interactive educational modules, they became more interested. A young farmer named Ravi said, "I never thought I could feel like I was in a magical underwater city." These experiences are not only interesting but also teach us important things about our connection to nature and each other. Political and regulatory hurdles. The Atlantean wisdom movement also faced political and regulatory challenges. In some countries, there were concerns about the potential influence of a new, global spiritual movement on national sovereignty and cultural identity. Some governments were hesitant to allow the widespread implementation of Atlantean inspired programs in schools and workplaces without a thorough understanding of their implications. Elara and her team engaged in diplomatic efforts. They met with government officials, presented the scientific research on the benefits of Atlantean practices, and emphasized that the movement was not about imposing a particular ideology but about promoting universal values of harmony, respect, and sustainability. They also worked on customizing the programs to align with the local cultural and educational policies. In a European country, after a series of meetings with the Education Ministry, the Atlantean-inspired school curriculum was modified to include more local historical and cultural references. This adaptation not only addressed the government's concerns but also made the program more relatable to the students. The education minister commented, "By integrating local elements, we can ensure that the Atlantean wisdom enriches our existing educational framework rather than replacing it." Competition and misinformation. As the Atlantean wisdom movement gained popularity, it also faced competition from other spiritual and self-help movements. Some of these movements, in an attempt to capitalize on the growing interest in alternative wisdom, misappropriated Atlantean symbols and concepts. This led to confusion among the public and sometimes diluted the true message of the Atlantean wisdom. To combat this, the movement launched a public awareness campaign. They created educational materials, including videos, articles, and infographics, to clearly define the authentic Atlantean wisdom and distinguish it from misinterpretations. The International Council of Advisors also took a more active role in monitoring and addressing instances of misappropriation. They sent cease and desist letters to organizations that were using Atlantean elements inappropriately and worked with legal experts to protect the intellectual property rights associated with the movement. On social media, the movement's official accounts regularly shared stories of real-life transformations brought about by the authentic Atlantean wisdom, further emphasizing its unique value. Followers of the movement also joined the effort, reporting instances of misinformation and promoting the true teachings. Inter-movement collaboration. Amidst the competition, Elara also saw opportunities for collaboration. She reached out to other spiritual and self-help movements that shared common values. She believed that by working together, they could have a more significant impact on global well-being. The movement entered into partnerships with organizations focused on mental health, environmental conservation, and social equality. One such partnership was with a global mental health initiative. Together, they developed a comprehensive mental health program that combined Atlantean meditation techniques with evidence-based psychological therapies. The program was piloted in several countries and showed promising results. Participants reported greater emotional resilience, reduced anxiety, and improved overall mental well-being. being. Another collaboration was with an international environmental group. They joined forces to create a campaign to promote sustainable consumption. The campaign used Atlantean wisdom to frame the issue, emphasizing the interconnectedness of human actions and the environment. Through this partnership, the movement was able to reach a wider audience and contribute to the global effort to combat climate change. Leadership succession and organizational growth. As the movement expanded, the issue of leadership succession became important. Elara knew that she couldn't lead the movement single-handedly forever. She started to groom a new generation of leaders within the organization. A leadership development program was established, which included in-depth training on Atlantean wisdom, project management, and cross-cultural communication. Young enthusiasts from different parts of the world were selected for the program. They were given opportunities to lead small-scale projects, learn from experienced members of the team, and contribute their own ideas. One of the young leaders in training, Maya from Africa, was put in charge of a community outreach project in her home country. With the support of the team, she successfully organized a series of workshops that attracted hundreds of participants. Maya said, "The leadership development program has given me the confidence and skills to make a real difference in my community. I'm excited to see where this journey takes me and how I can contribute to the growth of the Atlantean wisdom movement." The organizational structure of the movement also had to evolve. A more formal governance system was put in place, with clear roles and responsibilities for different teams. The movement was divided into departments such as education, research, outreach, and technology, each led by an experienced professional. This allowed for more efficient management of projects and resources. The road forward. Despite the numerous challenges, the Atlantean wisdom movement continued to thrive. The efforts to overcome the digital divide, navigate political and regulatory hurdles, combat misinformation, and foster collaborations were paying off. The movement was now more firmly established in the global landscape, and its influence was being felt in diverse aspects of society. Elara reflected on the journey so far. The road has been long and filled with obstacles, but each challenge has been an opportunity for growth. We've learned to adapt, to collaborate, and to stay true to the core principles of the Atlantean wisdom. As we look to the future, I'm confident that we can continue to expand our reach, touch more lives, and make a lasting impact on the world. The movement was on the cusp of a new era. With a stronger leadership pipeline, a more organized structure, and a growing network of partners, it was ready to take on even greater challenges. The Atlantean wisdom was no longer just an idea but a living, breathing force that was shaping the way people thought, lived, and interacted with the world around them. And as the movement continued to evolve, it carried with it the hope of a more harmonious, sustainable, and enlightened future for all of humanity. Chapter 12: The Deepening of Impact and the Shaping of a New Paradigm. The Atlantean Wisdom Movement, having weathered a series of challenges, was now experiencing a deepening of its impact across the globe. The innovative solutions implemented in response to previous hurdles had set the stage for a more profound transformation in various aspects of human life, from individual well-being to global policies. Individual transformations and community empowerment. On an individual level, the stories of transformation continued to pour in from all corners of the world. The Atlantean-inspired meditation techniques and self-awareness practices were becoming an integral part of people's daily routines. In North America, a corporate executive named James had been struggling with high stress levels and a sense of disconnection from his family and colleagues. After participating in an Atlantean-based mindfulness program, he experienced a significant shift. "I used to be constantly caught up in the rat race, always chasing the next big deal," James said. "But the Atlantean meditations taught me to slow down, to be present in the moment. I've learned to appreciate the simple things in life, and as a result, my relationships with my family have improved significantly. At work, I'm more focused and creative, and I've found a new sense of purpose beyond just making money." In a small community in South America, a group of artists was inspired by the Atlantean concept of the interconnectedness of all things. They started a collective art project where they used recycled materials to create large-scale installations that depicted the harmony between humans and nature. This project not only gave the artists a new sense of direction but also became a focal point for the community. It raised awareness about environmental conservation and brought the community together in a shared creative endeavor. Community centers inspired by Atlantean principles were multiplying. In a suburb of an Asian city, a new community center was built. It offered a wide range of programs, from meditation classes and yoga sessions to workshops on sustainable living. The center became a hub of activity, where people of all ages and backgrounds could come together. Elderly residents shared their life experiences, while young people learned new skills and ideas. The sense of community that developed around the center was palpable, and it served as a model for other neighborhoods. Educational reforms and the cultivation of future leaders. In the field of education, the Atlantean-inspired curricula were having a far-reaching impact. Schools that had adopted these curricula were seeing a shift in the way students learned and interacted. In Europe, a high school teacher named Maria noticed that her students were becoming more empathetic and collaborative. The Atlantean stories and teachings have created a culture of respect in the classroom, Maria said. Students are more willing to listen to different perspectives, and they are actively involved in group projects. They understand that their success is not just about their individual achievements but also about the well-being of the whole class. Universities were also starting to take notice. A renowned university in Australia introduced a new interdisciplinary course on Atlantean wisdom and its applications in modern society. The course attracted students from diverse fields, including environmental science, psychology, and sociology. Through this course, students were encouraged to think critically about the role of ancient wisdom in solving contemporary problems. The movement also focused on cultivating future leaders. Scholarships were established for students who showed a deep interest in the Atlantean wisdom and its potential to create positive change. These scholarships not only provided financial support but also mentorship opportunities. Recipients of the scholarships were expected to contribute to the movement in some way, whether through research, community service, or spreading the teachings. Business innovations and sustainable economies. In the business world, the influence of Atlantean wisdom was leading to innovative practices. A startup in Silicon Valley was developing a new business model based on the Atlantean concept of harmony and balance. The company, which focused on software development, implemented a 4-day workweek. They believed that by giving employees more time for self-reflection, family, and personal growth, they would be more productive and creative. The results were astonishing. Employee satisfaction skyrocketed, and the company's output increased. The company's CEO, Lisa, said, "The Atlantean wisdom has taught us that a happy and well-balanced workforce is the key to success. We're not just a business, we're a community, and we're all in this together." In the field of sustainable economies, the Atlantean wisdom was providing a framework for evaluating traditional economic models. An economic think tank in Europe was conducting research on how to incorporate the value of nature and social well-being into GDP calculations. They proposed a new metric, the Harmony-Based Development Index, which would take into account factors such as environmental sustainability, community cohesion, and individual well-being. Global policy and the emergence of a new paradigm. On the global stage, the Atlantean wisdom movement was starting to influence policy making. International organizations were beginning to recognize the potential of Atlantean principles in addressing global challenges such as climate change, social inequality, and mental health issues. A United Nations agency was considering incorporating Atlantean-inspired concepts into its sustainable development goals. The idea was to promote a more holistic approach to development, one that emphasized the interconnectedness of economic, social, and environmental factors. Elara was invited to present the movement's ideas at a high-level conference organized by the agency. In her presentation, Elara said, "The Atlantean wisdom offers a vision of a world where we don't just strive for growth but for harmonious growth. We need to understand that our actions in one part of the world have a ripple effect on the entire planet. By adopting principles such as interconnectedness and respect for all life, we can create policies that lead to a more sustainable and just world." As the movement's influence on global policy grew, there was a sense that a new paradigm was emerging. This paradigm was based on the recognition of the unity of all life, the importance of balance and harmony, and the need for a more inclusive and sustainable approach to development. Challenges in the midst of progress. However, the movement was not without its ongoing challenges. One of the major challenges was the need for continuous research to validate the long-term effects of Atlantean practices. While there were many anecdotal stories of positive change, more scientific studies were required to convince skeptics and to inform evidence-based policy making. The movement also faced the challenge of maintaining its authenticity as it became more mainstream. There was a risk of the core teachings being diluted or co-opted by commercial interests. To address this, the International Council of Advisors was strengthened. They developed a set of standards and guidelines for the use of Atlantean wisdom in different contexts, ensuring that the essence of the teachings remained intact. Another challenge was the need to adapt to the rapidly changing global landscape. New technologies, social trends, and geopolitical situations required the movement to be flexible and innovative. Elara and her team were constantly monitoring these changes and looking for ways to integrate the Atlantean wisdom into new areas of human activity. The future outlook. Despite these challenges, the future of the Atlantean wisdom movement looked promising. The deepening of its impact in various sectors of society was a testament to the power of its teachings. The movement had come a long way from its humble beginnings, and it was now on the verge of becoming a significant force in shaping a new global paradigm. Elara was filled with a sense of pride and responsibility. We have a long way to go, but the progress we've made so far is encouraging. The Atlantean wisdom has the potential to transform our world, but we need to be vigilant, to keep researching, and to adapt. I believe that if we continue to work together, we can create a world where the principles of Atlantis are not just an ideal but a reality. The movement was at a critical juncture. It had the opportunity to influence global policies, transform education systems, and empower individuals and communities. As it moved forward, it would need to navigate the challenges with wisdom and determination, always staying true to the core principles of the Atlantean wisdom. And as it did, it held the promise of a more harmonious, sustainable, and enlightened future for humanity. Epilogue. the ever-enduring legacy of Atlantean wisdom. As the years rolled on, the Atlantean wisdom movement had firmly established itself as an indelible force in the tapestry of global human experience. What had once been a spark of discovery in the Forgotten Library of Atlantis had blossomed into a full-fledged global phenomenon, touching every corner of the world and influencing every aspect of human life. The ubiquity of Atlantean wisdom. In education, the Atlantean-inspired curricula had become the norm rather than the exception. Schools around the world, from the bustling metropolises to the most remote villages, integrated the principles of interconnectedness, self-awareness, and harmony with nature into their daily teachings. Children grew up with a deep-seated understanding that their actions had a ripple effect on the world around them, fostering a sense of responsibility from an early age. In a primary school in a small town in India, students started their day with a short meditation session, focusing on their breath and visualizing the connection between themselves, their classmates, and the wider world. This simple practice set a positive tone for the day, making the classroom environment more conducive to learning. Teachers reported that students were more engaged, empathetic, and better able to handle the pressures of academic life. At the university level, research on Atlantean wisdom and its applications had become a vibrant field. Interdisciplinary studies were being conducted, exploring the intersections of Atlantean philosophy with fields as diverse as quantum physics, anthropology, and urban planning. A group of physicists in the United States was investigating the possible correlations between the Atlantean concept of universal energy and the fundamental forces of the universe. Their research aimed to understand if there was a deeper, underlying unity to the physical and spiritual worlds, as the Atlanteans had seemingly intuited. In the corporate world, businesses of all sizes had embraced Atlantean principles. Companies no longer viewed profit-making as their sole objective but as part of a larger equation that included the well-being of their employees, the environment, and the communities they served. A multinational corporation in Europe had implemented a triple bottom line approach, where they measured their success not only by financial metrics but also by their environmental impact and social contributions. They had created employee-led initiatives focused on community development and environmental conservation, inspired by the Atlantean idea of giving back to the world. Small and medium-sized enterprises, SMEs, were also not left behind. In Africa, a network of local artisans had formed a cooperative based on Atlantean principles of collaboration and mutual respect. They shared resources, knowledge, and markets, ensuring that each member's skills were valued and that the group as a whole thrived. This cooperative had not only improved the economic situation of the artisans but also strengthened the local community. Community-driven transformations. Communities worldwide had been transformed by the Atlantean wisdom. Community centers inspired by Atlantean values were now common in every neighborhood. These centers served as gathering places for people of all ages, where they could participate in meditation sessions, attend workshops on sustainable living, and engage in cultural exchange programs. In a coastal community in Australia, the local Atlantean-inspired centre had been at the forefront of efforts to protect the marine environment. The centre organised regular beach clean-ups, and through its educational programs, it taught the community about the importance of the ocean ecosystem and their role in preserving it. As a result, the community became more conscious of their impact on the environment, and there was a significant reduction in marine pollution. In a large city in North America, a community center hosted a monthly cultural night based on the Atlantean principle of respect for diversity. People from different ethnic, cultural, and religious backgrounds would come together to share their traditions, food, and stories. These events had helped break down barriers and build a more inclusive and harmonious community. Global policy and the Atlantean influence. On the global stage, Atlantean wisdom had become an integral part of international policy making. The United Nations and other international organizations had incorporated Atlantean-inspired concepts into their sustainable development goals. The idea of harmonious growth, which emphasized the balance between economic development, social well-being, and environmental protection, was now a guiding principle in global development initiatives. A new international treaty on climate change, negotiated with the influence of Atlantean wisdom, focused not only on reducing carbon emissions but also on restoring the balance of the entire ecosystem. It recognized that all life forms were interconnected and that the well-being of humanity was dependent on the health of the planet. Countries were encouraged to adopt sustainable practices that respected the rights of all species and the integrity of the natural world. In the area of social justice, Atlantean principles had influenced policies aimed at reducing inequality. Governments were implementing programs that promoted equal access to education, healthcare, and economic opportunities, based on the Atlantean belief in the inherent worth and equality of all individuals. Challenges met and overcome. Throughout its growth, the Atlantean wisdom movement had faced numerous challenges, but it had overcome them with resilience and innovation. The need for continuous research had been met with a global network of research institutions dedicated to studying the effects of Atlantean practices. These institutions had produced a wealth of scientific evidence, validating the positive impact of Atlantean meditation techniques on mental health, the effectiveness of Atlantean-inspired educational curricula, and the benefits of sustainable business practices based on Atlantean principles. The issue of maintaining authenticity in the face of commercialization had been addressed through strict guidelines and a vigilant international council of advisors. They ensured that any use of Atlantean symbols, concepts, or practices in commercial products or services adhered to the core teachings. This had prevented the dilution of the wisdom and maintained its integrity. The next generation of stewards. As the movement entered a new era, a new generation of leaders was emerging. These young people, who had grown up with the influence of Atlantean wisdom, were taking the movement to new heights. They were more tech-savvy, more globally connected, and more passionate about creating a better world. A young entrepreneur named Aisha, from the Middle East, had founded a startup that used blockchain technology to promote sustainable supply chains. Inspired by the Atlantean concept of transparency and interconnectedness, her company provided consumers with real-time information about the origin and environmental impact of the products they purchased. Another young leader, Carlos, from South America, was working on a project to use artificial intelligence to develop personalized Atlantean-based self-improvement programs. His aim was to make the benefits of Atlantean wisdom more accessible to people around the world, tailored to their individual needs and circumstances. The ever-enduring legacy. Elara, who had started this remarkable journey, looked back with a deep sense of fulfillment. The movement had become a self-sustaining entity, driven by the collective will of people who believed in the power of Atlantean wisdom. She knew that the legacy of Atlantis was now in the hands of millions of people worldwide, each contributing in their own way to creating a more harmonious, sustainable, and enlightened world. The Atlantean wisdom had become more than just a set of teachings, it was a way of life. It had transcended cultural, religious, and national boundaries, uniting people in a common purpose. As the sun set on another day of progress, Elara knew that the journey of the Atlantean wisdom movement would continue, evolving, and adapting to the changing needs of humanity. And she was confident that the ever-enduring legacy of Atlantis would guide future generations towards a future filled with peace, prosperity, and unity. In the quiet corners of the world, in the bustling cities, and in the digital spaces where people connected, the spirit of Atlantean wisdom lived on. It was a legacy that would be passed down through the ages, a beacon of hope and a guide for humanity as it continued to navigate the complexities of the modern world and strive for a better future.